Hello ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, my name is Dominic and I'd like to welcome you all to another episode of Spotlight Game of Thrones, the series in which we take a look at some of the characters who feature in the A Song of Ice and Fire novels, but are yet to be seen on the hit HBO show. So, if you love Game of Thrones and want to know more about the world and its characters outside of the TV show, you've come to the right place. In today's episode, we'll be continuing our look at the Targaryen dynasty. Last time we examined King Aegon the Targaryen, also known as Dragonbane and the Melancholy King, who ruled after the Dance of the Dragons, the civil war that nearly tore the realm in two. King Aegon III, who was forever marred by the tragedy he had experienced as a child during the war, would eventually die of consumption at the young age of 36, and he would be succeeded by his firstborn son and the man we're going to be looking at today, King Daeron I Targaryen, also known as the Young Dragon. Like his father before him, King Daeron assumed the throne at a young age, being only 14 when his father died. However, unlike King Aegon, it was judged that due to his genius and charm, the young King Daeron would need no regency period and was fit to assume total control of the realm. Daeron kept his uncle Viserys as his hand of the king. His first priority, and the thing that would come to define the reign of King Daeron I, would be to achieve something that even Aegon the Conqueror was incapable of achieving. King Daeron I wanted to conquer Dorne. When King Daeron formulated his plan with the help of his cousin the Oakenfist Admiral Aelin Velaryon, people began to believe that the conquest could indeed be done, as the young dragon's plan seemed to improve upon the conqueror's own. King Daeron proved his military genius in the conquest. In order to take Dorne, which had defied the Reach, the Stormlands and even the dragons of House Targaryen for hundreds of years, King Daeron divided his hosts into three forces, one led by Lord Tyrell, who came down the Prince's Path at the western end of the Red Mountains, one led by the Master of Ships Admiral Aelin Velaryon, who came by sea, and one led by King Daeron himself, who marched down the Bone Way, a treacherous path used by goats that had up until then been thought too dangerous to cross. However, in doing so, the king was able to skirt the Dornish watchtowers that had proven a detriment to Lord Orys Baratheon over 100 years prior. The young dragon swept aside all forces that opposed him, and when Lord Aelin and the royal fleets broke Plankytown, they were able to drive up the river and effectively divide Dorne in two, taking control of the Greenblood. Within a year, the young dragon reached the gates of Sunspear, and the Prince of Dorne and 40 of the most powerful Dornish lords bent their knees to Daeron at what would be known as the submission of Sunspear. King Daeron consolidated control of Dorne and dealt with rebels swiftly, eventually pacifying the hinterlands. He took 14 highborn hostages in order to ensure loyalty and good behaviour from his new subjects, and left Lord Tyrell in Dorne to keep the peace. However, the peace would not last long. While the hostages helped to ensure the loyalty of the nobility, the small folk of Dorne would not be so easily quelled. 10,000 men died in what would come to be known as the Battle for Dorne, and 40,000 more over the course of the following 3 years, as the Dornish men continued to fight against the king's forces stationed within the country. Lord Tyrell did his best to maintain the peace, travelling from castle to castle and punishing dissenters with the noose. But when Lord Tyrell and his men were attacked on the road and murdered in a bed of scorpions, rebellion began in earnest. In the year 160, the young dragon himself returned to Dorne in an attempt to put down the rebels, and he won several small victories, but he was betrayed under the banner of peace, for when he agreed to meet the Dornish men in order to discuss terms and have them renew their fealty, he and his retinue were instead attacked. 3 members of his King's Guard died trying to defend him, and even the legendary Aemon the Dragon Knight was captured after he slew 2 of his betrayers. The young dragon himself died with the conqueror's sword Blackfire in hand, surrounded by a dozen of his enemies. And so King Daeron I's reign ended up only lasting 4 short years, in which his tremendous ambition saw him undone. He died in the year 161 AC at the young age of 18. In the city of Oldtown, a statue was erected in his honour that depicts him astride a tall stone horse with his sword lifted toward Dorne. Thanks so much for watching this episode of Spotlight Game of Thrones. Remember, you can find previous episodes on the channel, as well as a playlist with all of Season 1's episodes included. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, as it really does help me out, and I'll see you all again soon.